I guess the biggest bottleneck in any Triana combo will be the bishop roll, I said to Kiba during our lunch break between bites of a rice ball. We members of the Gremlin Familia were busy practicing for our upcoming match in the vast fields of the Gremlin territory. Kiba and I were engaged in a fierce practice bout and were now taking a breather. In the distance, Frostvice was busy training with Zenobia, while Gasper and Konako were lending each other a hand. The present Akano watched over all of us, offering helpful advice. Ozzy seemed to be discussing some form of holy incantation with Irina. The raiding game with Cyreorg was coming up fast, so all of our available time was either spent on solo training or team practice. Practically every day involved preparing for the Academy Festival, then demon work, and finally combat exercises. Yeah, the issue with your Trianic Bishop is its charging time. So long as you time your actions properly, you should be able to deal considerable damage with your Knight and Rook rolls. You can even force your opponents to lower their guard by altering the path of any blast after firing it. Kiba replied as he wiped the sweat from his face. It was just as he said. Alone, each of my Triana rolls had obvious shortcomings. However, mock battles with Kiba, Zenobia, and Rosvice had revealed new tactics. Combined, my overwhelming speed, offensive power, and defensive capabilities made for the ultimate weapon if timed appropriately. I was also fortunate that I could switch between Triana roles as much as I wanted without needing the Prez's approval. The issue was my Bishop mode. Powering up my cannon was a real drawback. If my opponent realized what I was doing, there was no way they'd kindly wait until I was ready. And that long charging time really limited the possibilities. At the tail end of our battle in Kyoto, I hit upon an idea to bend an energy blast after firing it. It was easier said than done though. Pulling it off consistently, even in my Triana Bishop form, would require considerable training. In a team battle, it's also necessary to work hand in hand with the other members. Zenobia and I will form the vanguard, while you, Issei, will take the rear and charge your cannon. When you're ready, you'll need to act immediately. There won't be many members of the Bale Familia who would be able to survive a direct hit from that insane bombardment. Cooperation would be a must. Letting my friends buy me time to unleash my attack safely was definitely a better option. By the way, how much does it drain you? Kiba inquired. He was referring to the strain my Triana ability put on my physical energy and stamina. I think I could last a little longer than I could at first, but it's still nothing to sneeze at. That was especially true when it came to any combo moves. Continuously promoting left me exhausted before I knew it hit me. It would be nice if I could use it 2 or 3 times, but I would have to save that trick up my sleeve for a direct encounter with Cyreorg. Isaiah's Sacred Gear meted any physical injuries, but it did nothing for my depleted stamina. I'd only get 1 shot if I ran out of strength, if I couldn't maintain my scale mail. It's a team battle, so I'll have you back when you need it. I developed a new technique of my own after all, Kiba said, beaming with confidence. Right, he showed me that earlier. He was still keeping it under wraps, but it was incredible. Facing off against it had certainly made for good training. That was good for you, Kiba. He'd used his defeat in Kyoto to spur him on to new heights. I just thought of something. Ravel, who had come to observe our training, must have overheard our conversation as she raised a hand to offer a comment. It's about that special bishop promotion you mentioned. Instead of firing that cannon blast yourself, couldn't you transfer the energy to someone else? You would have a much wider attack range if you did that. At this suggestion, Kiba and I were both rendered temporarily speechless. That's a good idea! That's a good idea! We both cried at the same time, nodding in excitement. She was right! I probably could do that. Bishops were essentially support pieces after all. It stood to reason that I could transfer the tremendous accumulation of energy to someone else to use. If that's possible, we'll have a much wider selection of tactics at our disposal, Kiba noted. Even if the other side realizes you're readying your shot, If you transfer that power to someone else, we might be able to catch them unprepared. Do you think that we could trick them? Make them wonder whether I mean to shoot or pass? Yeah, that should shake their confidence considerably. If you could transmit to one of us over a long distance, it could prove to be a very useful team ability. Also, you have your 2 cannons, so if, like your usual transfer technique, you could divide it between 2 recipients, you should be able to assist the Vanguard considerably. We'll have to plan our strategy properly, but this should be an interesting experiment. Whoa! With this, I'll actually be super helpful in a team battle. Heck, in real life fights too. Ravel sure has struck on an interesting idea. Maybe she was a natural strategist. I would need a good technician of my own for a future familia, and this was precisely what I was looking for. With my brains, I'd be a complete dolt of a king, so a little intellectual backup was necessary. The problem, I think, will be the field. It would be good if it's amendable to teams, however. With the practice bout between Zenobia and Rosweiss finished, the president approached us and gave us insight. Zenobia and Rosweiss were both laying prone on the ground. Theirs had been a fierce contest, and the sounds of combat had been going for some time. They were surely both exhausted. Cyberorg told those organizing the match that he would let us fight with everything we have, and they agreed to it, the press explained. As such, there are no restraints on our activities, making this a different sort of rating game than I won against the Siege Familia. However, there is a special rule this time. A special rule? I repeated. The press nodded. The venue will be an aerial city, floating over the territory belonging to the Archduke Aguirre's. The organizers are hoping to attract a large audience, and it seems they don't anticipate a long battle. Hold on. So there are floating cities in the underworld? If that was true, it was really no different than a fantasy realm. And the match will be spectated by a large audience. In that case, they probably weren't expecting it to last several days, as was sometimes the case of raiding games. So it will be a blitz-style fight. A short, decisive skirmish. If the organizers were hoping to please a crowd, that would certainly be a way to keep them excited. Watching me ponder this new development, the press flashed me a forced smile. Raiding games are a form of entertainment, so they're partly designed to please fans. They may be young, but in the underworld, Rias Grimoires and Cyberorg Bale's families are just as popular as full-on professional teams, Ravel added. Your matches are already getting a lot of attention. They mention you on TV almost every day. Knowing that, it certainly did sound like a small battlefield would help keep the fans on their toes. I was a demon now, so I would have to keep this aspect of the raiding game in mind. It really was different from genuine combat. It was entertainment. Being the breast dragon, maybe I could add to the audience's thrill. I had to imagine a lot of children would be coming to watch too. Whatever the arena, this contest against Cyberorg wouldn't be an easy one, and I sincerely doubted it would go entirely according to plan. For now, our only choice was to dedicate ourselves to our training and remain confident in prospects of victory. I definitely had to try out Ravel's idea later. Thanks, Ravel. That's good advice, I said. Immediately, her face turned scarlet. She responded almost standoffishly. Not at all. I would be embarrassed if someone I owed a favor to lost such an important match. A couple days ago, she had moved into the Hyoto residence with the rest of us. She'd been reared as a real-life princess, but because of that, there was a lot of everyday things she didn't know how to do herself, such as eating with chopsticks or using a washing machine. As such, I'd been keeping her company and teaching her how to look after herself. At such times, she would inevitably get into a fight with Konako. The two of them, it seemed, didn't quite get along. Whenever they bumped into each other in the hallway, they turned away with an audible, Were birds and cats just natural enemies? Heck, I'd never seen Konako act this way before. Still, as far as I could tell, the two of them truly seemed to despise each other. Did they enjoy fighting, maybe? For now, I suppose I could let them be. I rose to my feet and said, "Alright, Kiba, let's see if I can actually pull off this power transferring idea." I was fired up and ready to get back to practice. Unfortunately, "That will be enough for today," the press said, stopping me. "We have a press conference tomorrow. If you keep this up much longer, you won't be in a state to appear before the media." A press conference? I blinked in surprise. A press conference? I must have been making a dumb face as the press broke into a slight grin. "Oh, I didn't tell you. Our team and Sire Orgs are supposed to meet the media before the match. We'll be on television, so don't make any funny faces, okay?" What? I couldn't have my shock. This was the first I heard of this. The following night, after finishing our preparations for the Academy Festival at school, we made our way to a luxury hotel in the Grimory territory. We were gathered in a waiting room on the top floor of the building. It was a huge space, filled with expensive-looking furniture. The tables were lined with platters of food, cakes, and sweets I've never seen before. It was a skyscraper, and so luxurious. Later tonight, our press conference would be held in the hall on the second floor of the building. The topic was simple enough, a pre-game media interview. The President's Sire Org would be the main focus. Oh, and I was going to answer some questions too. After all, I was the press dragon. But what was I supposed to say? I didn't even know what the questions would be. "Do you have any words for the beautiful ladies of the underworld?" Would a reporter ask me something like that? Probably not. No doubt Kiba and Sire Org would be the ones to get that kind of question. Damn those pretty boys. Free to send out suave messages to the demon women of the underworld. I was sitting on the sofa, trying to get my thoughts in order, when Konoko plopped down on my lap, digging into a piece of cake. She sure had guts doing it at a time like this. Ozzy and Rosvice were sitting in front of a wide mirror with makeup artists, desperately touching up their faces. "How about this? Does it suit me? No." Zenobia looked calm enough, having applied a light coat of makeup. The Prince and Akano were both all set. We were supposed to wear our school uniforms for the press conference, but perhaps owing to their makeup, they both looked particularly glamorous, even in that everyday attire. They were really gorgeous, my two great ladies. However, this wasn't the time to be besotted with them. I had to relax my nerves. "Are you gonna wear the girls' uniform, Gasper?" I heard Kiba ask. Yes," Gasper responded. "It will feel strange to dress up like a boy now, but more importantly, I don't want to go. I'm a shut-in. I'll be too out of place in front of the cameras." Those two looked about as ready as they'd ever be. "Just don't go hide in the cardboard box, Casper." Speaking of Kiba, and transferring the energy from my Triana cannons, I couldn't resist the temptation to experiment with it this morning, and it was tough. Perhaps because all the gathered power was supposed to be used for the attack, it was extremely challenging to convert it for a transfer. The very idea of firing something other than my demonic power from those cannons was insane. Still, it shouldn't have been possible. No, it definitely was possible. I knew I wouldn't be able to pull it off by tomorrow, though. If I could, it would have made a handy support ability for the others. At the moment, the only way I could transfer my powers was through physical contact. Ravel's idea was still a good one, and worth working towards, though. At the present, however, it would be faster for me to change into my Triana Knight role to transfer my boosted power by touch. Did that mean I was better suited to outright attack and employing erotic tactics?
"You've always emphasized attack, although, among many of my previous hosts,
There were those who specialized in transferring their energy. Seriously, Drake? How did they fight focusing on transferring the power? They would do it in a number of ways to increase the potency of their effect. One was a summoner and would send their power to the creatures they called to fight. That afforded them a great many battle options. So there were guys like that among my predecessors. I was completely talentless when it came to demonic powers, so it sounded like that summoner person had the exact opposite fighting style to me. Wizard-type Red Dragon Emperor. Who would have thought such a thing actually existed? But this wasn't a time to be pondering that. We were about to step out in front of the cameras. The clock was ticking. I should probably check myself over in the mirror one last time. Unfortunately, I was trapped beneath Konako, who still hadn't moved from my lap. She had been following me around all day, constantly tugging at my sleeve, seemingly more attached to me than usual. Perhaps she caught me wondering about her behavior as her cheeks turned faintly pink. That roast chicken isn't here today, so I wanted to sit on your lap. Akano, overhearing this, gave us both a smile. Oh dear, is our sweet little Konako afraid Reva will steer Issei away from her? Konako's face reddened further. Is that right? I asked timidly. Konako pursed her lips. You're too kind, Issei. It gets you into trouble. I didn't know what she meant by that, but maybe she was unhappy of how much time I spent with Reva lately? Was she afraid of being replaced as my underclassman? What a shock to think that the first-year girl had become so dependent on me. I think you're adorable, Konako, so don't worry, I assured her, but that did little to improve her mood. Her expression remained unchanged, but her tail was wagging. So maybe I had succeeded in comforting her a little. The Prez was also watching our exchange. Yes, Issei does tend to be overly nice with people. For my part, no, never mind, she whispered. I couldn't help but feel vaguely suspicious by how sullen and abruptly she became. Her eyes looked a little sad. There was definitely something up with her. Had something happened? At that moment, the door leading into the waiting room swung open. It was a member of the staff. It's almost time, everyone, they called. It looked like the press conference was about to begin. I was so nervous. As we proceeded down the corridor, we bumped into a familiar face. If it isn't Rias, Hyoto, and everyone from the co-research club. It was Saji. What was he doing here? Saji? What have you done now? The person in question merely shrugged his shoulders. What was that response? You're one to talk. Well, I guess it can't be helped. Our next rating game has been decided, but it isn't getting all that much attention. He let out a sigh. Our rating game is against the Garys. We're here for a press meeting, too. What? Why didn't anyone tell me? What was going on? Seriously, this was my first time hearing about it. Seeing me flustered, the press tilted her head to one side. Didn't I mention it? Sauna's match against Seek Vira at Gary's will be at the same time as ours. It would also be held in the Gary's territory. I think the venue is a group of floating islands over a large lake. She definitely hadn't mentioned it. First the press conference, now this? Was the press making a habit of not notifying me of things in advance? Maybe it had just simply slipped her mind, what with how busy we were preparing for the Academy Festival and the upcoming match. Saji laughed. Didn't you hear me? No one's paying attention to us. I mean, your battle features the famous Gremlin Familia, and the Breast Dragon, and the #1 demon youth, Cyber Orc Bale and his group. sorry, Saji. If I had known, maybe we could have given each other a pep talk. Undoubtedly, he was super busy with everything the student council had to do before the academy festival. Come on, Jen. We can't be late. Best of luck, Rias, said Hanakai, a bishop in the Siege Familia. Right. Well then, we'll be off, Saji remarked. Good luck. Give Sona my regards, the prez responded. Saji bowed his head before hurrying away. So the Siege Familia's rating game was taking place soon too, and their opponent was Sikh Fiver of the Archducal House of Agares. They were up against that cool, poised, and absolutely terrifying beauty. I had heard that she was every bit the strategist that Chairwoman Sona was. It would be a true battle of wits, and could possibly end up being a total stalled out situation. After our brief chat with Saji, we continued on the corridor until we reached the hall for our press interview. Here they are, the Grammar Familia making their entrance now. We stepped into the spacious hall to a round of applause. That very moment, I felt suddenly tense and nervous. Everyone in the room seemed to be emanating fighting spirit. Whoa, there were so many people. Probably reporters and their assistants and the like. They were all staring at us and snapping pictures. Hanging behind the stage at the front of the room was a large banner. Cyra Bale versus Rias Gremory. The members of Cyra Familia had already taken their seats. After a brief pause to get our bearings, we took the chairs beside the Bale group. The prez sat in the middle, with Akano on her right, and me on her left, positioned so that we would be the center of attention. On the Bale side, everyone looked to be fired up and ready to go, especially Cyra. No sooner had I entered the room than I sensed his eagerness for the battle to get underway. His expression was serious, completely different from when we met at the hospital. Maybe this press conference would serve as the opening salvo? From the second row behind us, Gasper's eyes were wide open, as though he was desperately trying to conceal his self-consciousness. Hang in there, shut-in vampire. This is the moment of truth. Now that everyone has arrived, I would like to start the press interview, came a voice over the speaker system, the lead journalist. With that, the press conference got underway. The lead interview began introducing basic details of the upcoming match. Location, time, the two kings, and so forth. This prompted enthusiastic responses for both the prez and Cyra. Both team leaders maintained dignified appearances throughout. I sat quietly while my master and fellow Familia members answered the questions posed to them. Even the slightest movement risked catching the reporter's attention. I had to remain calm. My hands grew sweaty, but thankfully, the first portion of the media event went off without a hitch. Now it was time for various members of both sides to field individual queries. My female teammates, who had large male fan bases in the underworld, answered a few questions, while Kiba, popular among women, had no difficulty responding to his. Finally, it was my turn. I have one for Issei Hyodo, the breast dragon currently soaring in popularity throughout the underworld. Okay, I answered. What were they going to ask? About my preferences in women? Or my thoughts about the match? My head was practically spinning. Will you be poking Lady Rias' breast again this time? If so, what kind of situation do you envision? That inquiry came so out of left field that my mind went completely blank for a moment. I had to be pulling a stupid face, yet the journalist pressed the issue anyways. Reports say that you can power up by touching Lady Rias' breasts. Just like in your TV program, rumor has it you've been able to overcome countless crises thanks to that ability. What an awful question! Demons from all over knew I could boost my strength with boobs? Was that my public image? The worst thing about it was completely true. Shocked though I was, I had to say something. Well, you see, ouch. I was so nervous that I almost said the prez. It wouldn't do to call her that in public. She was my master, and I was supposed to address her properly. I must have mumbled my words, as the reporter seemed to hear something else. Squirch? Did you just say squirch? Are you suggesting that you plan to squirch your breasts to suck on them? A bombardment of camera flashes struck me, and a mass of journalists erupted in bustling commotion. What? They misunderstood me. Those damn reporters. Not squirch. How could they believe I said that? The situation was rapidly spiraling out of control. Does that mean that you'll be sucking on Lady Rias's breasts? No, I wasn't about to declare something like that in front of all these people. If touching them helps you power up, what happens when you suck on them? Will it unleash a power enough to destroy the entire underworld? As if I knew. Did they think I was some kind of breast dark lord, capable of annihilating the world by sucking on tits? Lady Rias, please, do you have a comment? Now they were directing their attention at the press. She was covering her face with her hands, but there was no mistaking it had turned a deep crimson in color. I don't know. My thoughts exactly. Akano was barely holding in her laughter. Fine, laugh all you want, see if I care. Cyber Org, what are your thoughts? That damn reporter, don't ask him. Cyber Org, his expression entirely serious, responded, I suspect if you sucked on a woman's breast, the Red Dragon Emperor would be terrifyingly powerful. Oh! The journalist went wild with that. Cyber Org, why did you have to go and say something so stupid? And just like that, the intense atmosphere hanging over the press conference was shattered, and a curtain of laughter fell over the event. After the press conference, the Grummer and Bear familiars came together at the back of the conference hall. Cyber Org was bellowing with mirth. You know, it's never a dull moment with the Grummer Familia. I went into the interview ready for battle, but now I feel completely refreshed. Yes, relaxed even. You didn't need to say anything so weird, Cyber Org. The Prez cried. Her face was scarlet and tears shone in the corner of her eyes. She was clearly embarrassed by what just happened. Sorry, Prez. I never meant for this to happen. I suppose you're right. Thanks to you, we ended up in a newsworthy press conference instead of a bloodthirsty one. I can't wait to see the headlines in the morning papers tomorrow. I wish I shared that sentiment. I could barely imagine the titles. Breast Dragon planning to scorch. If anything like that got printed, I would never be able to face the Press's family again. Cyber Org, still grinning, let out a deep exhale. I see. So, is this what it means to fight the Red Dragon Emperor? No, the Breast Dragon. I never thought it would end up competing for press coverage too. Sorry, I didn't intend to make fools out of everyone. I apologized. Cyber Org shook his head. Not at all. I don't mind. Quite the opposite, in fact. I can sense some unknown power from your presence. Causing such a ruckus at a high-profile venue confirms my feeling. Cyber Org was typically so stern, so earnest, yet he let his playful side show during the interview. Soon, we'd be meeting this friendly figure on the battlefield, all for the sake of our dreams and aspirations. With that, Cyber Org spun around, departing with a wave. I had fun tonight. Our next reunion will be our decisive battle. Let's meet again in the skies above. Right. Our next encounter will be during the raining game. At least we survived the press conference, although that meant even less time until our match. I won't lose. The newspapers tomorrow are gonna be a nightmare. I muttered as I took a soak in the large bathing area beneath the Kyoto residence. After the media event, we'd made our way back home. returning to our normal routines. I couldn't shake the embarrassment. It was so intense that I wanted to die on the spot. I'd hoped a bath would improve my mood. By the way, the new bathing area in my house was immense. It had been installed during the recent large-scale renovation. It was so huge that 20 people could fit in it comfortably. Of course, there was still a regular-sized bathtub up on the first floor. From what I gathered, the girls seemed to enjoy coming here to wash as a group. My parents were also allowed to use this area, but my mom had ordered my dad to use the bath on the first floor. Naturally, her reason was that there would be so many young women staying in her house. My dad didn't want to cause an international incident, so he agreed. It wasn't all bad for him, though. He essentially had a tub entirely to himself now. A private bath sure sounded nice. My mom had instructed me not to use the large basement tub as well, but I still liked to slip in it whenever I had the chance. What I would have given to find myself in a lucky pervert situation where the girls showed up. The bath was incredible, and I wanted to put it to full use. That said, there was no sign anyone would become joined me today. Sadly, even a soak in the warm water wasn't enough to repair my mood. Perhaps that was because the match was coming up fast, or my mental state seemed to be getting pushed to new extremes practically every day. Still, our dreams were on the line. I had to give the writing game my all. Alright then, maybe I'll try the sauna. Yeah, this grandiose bathroom also came complete with a steam room. The House of Grimoire truly possessed inconceivable wealth. It was always best to be prepared for a rainy day. I stepped into the steam room and sat there in a daze for around 10 minutes. My body positively oozed sweat. Perhaps another rinse after this to refresh myself was in order. Essentially, a glass of cold coffee-flavored milk on the way out was in order too. Just as I was about to leave the sauna, the door slid open, and the press entered, fully nude. Wait, what?
Oh, Issei.
She stood before me, fully naked, without so much as a bath towel. Even knowing I was here, she made no attempt to cover herself. How could she be so daring? I covered my privates with my hands, skirting towards the door in an attempt to slip out. However, the press grabbed a hold of my hand to stop me.
Don't worry. Keep me company for a while.
Was that really okay? I would end up feasting my eyes on her flesh. If she was cool with it, then thank you. Don't mind if I do. I sat down beside the press and let my eyes roam over her irresistible body. I couldn't be sure whether she'd taken a soak or had merely washed her body before entering the sauna, but her long crimson hair was wet, and it clung to her skin in a way that added to her sensual luster. She gracefully brushed her locks to one side with a hand as she crossed her legs. I couldn't help but swallow in anticipation. We were alone, just us two, in a private room. My body was already overheated from the sauna, and now I could feel the flames of desire burning from deep inside me. If I were worth anything as a man, I would have taken her right in my arms right here.
It's just me and you, Issei. What do you think would happen if you push me down on the bench?
Why did she have to come out swinging with something so tantalizingly obscene? Please, cut me some slack. Seriously, I can barely control myself in this situation already.
But you must be used to seeing me naked, so perhaps this isn't enough to drive you that far. What do you think, Issei?
Not at all. Your body is incredible. This wasn't an unusual kind of exchange for us. The press teased me, and I answered. She loved seeing me act all shy and bashful. It was different this time, though. She took my hand and placed it right on her chest. Her flesh was dripping with sweat, and the voluptuous, delectable feeling stimulated my nerves like nothing else. And then she whispered tantalizingly,
"If that's how you feel, then do it now." Her voice was slightly melancholic, and her skin tinged pink. I could sense the fiery determination burning within her. Hold on here. She wants me to take her? Seriously? Here? Now? Me? I was left utterly dumbfounded. Hey, Issei. What am I to you? You're the Prez. Nothing more, nothing less. Right. In my mind, she was my one and only Prez. Yet, after I said this, I felt like I could hear her grinding her teeth. At that moment, the Prez took my hand and squeezed it tightly. In that case, I would like to be more. Bah! With that, she leaned in towards me and she pushed me right down where I sat, all but falling over me. The glorious texture of her soft feminine skin assaulted my senses. My arms, chest, stomach, legs, everything was being covered by her supple skin. And her breasts were pushing up so tightly against my chest, so taut and elastic. There was no mistaking those points of pressure. They had to be her nipples. My brain was practically at a boil. The woman I loved pushed me down in a private sauna. She was practically lying on top of me. Could it be? Was this it? After everything, was it finally here? My first time. What more could I possibly wish for than for my initial experience to be with the Prez? There was no greater happiness. I lay there in bewilderment, unsure what to do with my hands. Where was I supposed to put them? I'd never done this before. Should I reach for her butt, her thighs, or were her breasts the right call? With her lying directly on top of me, I felt her heartbeat coursing through my own body too. I was so nervous that my heart was pounding. But was she just as anxious? Let me feel you, she said as our lips overlapped. A kiss. This was bad. Our tongues practically entangled. I felt as though my brain could melt. She was sucking my tongue into her mouth. Obscene sounds echoed through the sauna, sending an unknown feeling racing through my body. Every time I tasted the Prez's saliva, it felt like sparks might come flying out of my eyes. I was completely turned on now. A wave of damp red hair came falling down on my face. The fragrant scent of the Prez's shampoo filled my nostrils with the resplendent flower garden. When our tongue left my mouth, a string of saliva joined us by the lips. We kissed before, but this was our first intense encounter. I had to ready myself. The Prez was completely serious. She was going to make love to me. My virginity would be lost in a sauna. The both of us was drenched in sweat. Prez, Unbelievable. I heard her mumble, and then she suddenly stopped. Prez, why would you call me that, even when we're about to do this? She lifted herself up, her expression vacant. She seemed so seductive before, yet now her face was stripped of all emotion. What am I to you? She pulled away. I thought to follow, but the Prez was shaking all over. She hurried towards the door. What just happened? Had I done something wrong? Prez, I called out. Don't follow me. She cried back, and just like that, she was gone. Unsure what had gone awry, all I could do was stare down at the small tears left on the floor. I found myself breathing a deep sigh after school the following day. A newspaper from the underworld was clutched in my hands. Breast dragon to scorch switch princess. The headline was just as terrible as I anticipated. I could feel a wave of dizziness coming on just by reading it. Nonetheless, this wasn't my main concern. There was a more pressing issue at hand. I offended the Prez last night. After finishing up in the bathroom, I found a piece of paper stuck to my bedroom door, reading, "No Isseis." I hadn't been able to step inside until this morning. The Prez and Azia had slept without me, while I'd been forced to take an empty room. It had been a lonely night. A new day hadn't done much to mend the Prez's mood either. When she spoke to me this morning, Her attitude had been perfunctory, and her usual smile was gone. The girls had all realized something was amiss, everyone asking me if something had happened. I could only answer that I wasn't entirely sure, yet they were all convinced it was my fault. And so, I was the bad guy. Look, maybe I was in the wrong, but what exactly should I have done? I had no idea. I heard that women preferred a romantic atmosphere on such occasions, so maybe that was it? I guess I didn't act the way I was supposed to, but what was the right way? Suddenly, I remembered something the Prez's mother had sent to me recently. Maybe the answer to this problem lay there. I had to assume my insane delusions were incorrect, though. Yeah, I was entirely off the mark. What did the Prez mean to me in my private life? Venelana's words kept echoing through my skull. If ours wasn't a master-servant relationship, an answer did come to mind, but it was so far-fetched that it seemed no more than a wild fantasy. Besides, what if I was simply misreading her behavior? Another memory came to mind. The fallen angel Rainier, the woman who had deceived me. My first girlfriend. I couldn't stand that recollection. Because of that experience, I couldn't follow through to the end. It had driven a wedge into the back of my mind. Even now, I hadn't gotten over it. I wanted to get to know the girls of the Grimmer Familia more, to take our bonds to the next level. Yet, because of that incident, I always found myself faltering. Damn it, I was so weak, pathetic even. I could recognize the problem, but I couldn't overcome it. Still, I wanted nothing more than to share these feelings with the Prez. When would I finally be able to move forward? This would have to wait. We were about to have an important meeting with Azazel to discuss the strategy of our upcoming raiding game. Kiba and Gasper were already in the room with me. The others hadn't arrived yet. The church trio had gone back to the new school building a short time ago to pick up some fabric to use in our preparation for the Academy Festival. The Prez and Akano were absent too. For now, it was just the guys. I decided to try starting a conversation. Yo, Gasper, how are Konoko and Ravel doing in class? The two of them are always arguing. Konoko is usually quiet, but she's merciless with her criticisms around Ravel. So, nothing new then. Konoko might complain, but since Ravel's new life in the human world, she's always looking out for her. And I guess Ravel frequently hangs around Konoko, despite her rebukes. In a way, the two of them seem to be getting along reasonably well by the sound of it. Yeah, I don't get it. A maiden's heart sure is complicated. I stared up at the ceiling.
They both likely realize they have feelings for the same guy. That's why they ended up butting heads. And they're in the same class, which exacerbates the issue.
Azazel said as he entered the room, staring down at me probingly.
What's up, Teach? Konoko's doing as you asked, and looking out for Ravel. And Ravel's relying on Konoko as she adjusts to her new life.
So it's working out then? I answered weakly. I don't think I could be helpful to Ravel the way Konoko is. I wish I could be some use to everyone, in private and in battle too, but I'm so useless. Gasper said gloomingly. What are you talking about? I replied. You're allowed to use your eyes this time around, and you're carrying a vial of my blood on you. What's there to worry about? I'm not brave or strong like you are, Issei, and I can't wield a sword like Yuto. I'd be happy if I could at least offer decent support, but as a man, I'm ashamed of myself. So, Gasper wanted to be an asset to the Familia, like Kiba and me. He might have had a penchant for dressing like a girl, but he was still a man at heart. Alright then, maybe I could give him a few pointers. Gasper, take what I'm about to say to heart. This is lesson 1 of being a man of the Grimmer Familia. Men need to protect women. Repeat after me. Men need to protect women. Good. Next, lesson 2. A man needs to always find his feet. A man needs to always find his feet. That's it. Finally, lesson 3. Whatever happens, don't give up. Whatever happens, don't give up. Excellent. Engrave those words into your heart and do us men of the Grimmer Familia proud. Okay, I'll burn those lessons into my memory. Whoa, he was getting really fired up. Kiba chuckled. I like that. I'll have to remember those tenets too. You better. No matter what happens, we guys of the Grimmer Familia can't give up.
Sounds like a pain in the ass,
Hazel muttered, having watched our exchange from the sidelines. While we boys worked ourselves up, the prez and the others arrived. I stole a glance at her, and while she clearly noticed, her expression remained blank and unreadable. She was still angry. What would I do if she kept hating me? I felt like despairing. Azazel cast a gaze over us as we gathered around.
Right then, let's get this meeting started.
With a stern look, Azazel said,
Before we talk about this match, we better go over the situation with all different forces. There's gonna be a little trouble with the Sacred Gear system.
What do you mean? Kiba asked.
You already know how the hero faction has been studying Sacred Gears and their balance breakers,
Azazel continued.
You've seen what they've been able to pull off firsthand.
Yeah, we certainly had. Back in Kyoto, the hero faction displayed some scary knowledge of Sacred Gears and their unique characteristics. However, their insights were polar opposite of Azazel's. They kept trying to push their Sacred Gears to boundaries that were supposed to be, for a good reason, off limits.
Word has it that they started teaching regular humans who don't belong to the hero faction and reincarnated demons how to unlock their own balance breakers.
Regular humans? Reincarnated demons? They were instructing them? That sounded bad. Balance breakers possess enormous power after all. See my reaction. Azazel nodded.
As for the results, well, you could probably imagine how a downtrodden person's values might change if they suddenly receive power strong enough to upset the balance of society. As you know, many people with Sacred Gears haven't exactly been dealt good hands in life. It isn't rare for them to suffer persecution and discrimination because of their differences. Plus, a lot of folks are reincarnated as demon servants because of some unfair pact.
The prez cut in there. Not all demons have others' best interest in mind. There are more than a few heartless, high-ranking demons out there. There may be more open-minded demons today, but we're ultimately methodical, pragmatic beings at heart. In other words, there was those with Sacred Gears who had been reincarnated as demons against their will, and now they had balance breakers.
Yeah, there's plenty of Sacred Gear vessels who endured a lot of hardship,
Azazel said.
So, what will they do when they get their hands on an overwhelming level of power?
Silence fell over the room. Azazel's expression clouded over.
They'll use them. Regular humans with those kinds of abilities might be spurred to seek revenge on anyone who wronged them, while those reincarnated as demons could end up lashing out against their masters.
That would be disastrous. There would be riots and unrest all throughout the human realm and the underworld, and the instigators would be willing balance breakers. There would probably be people armed with Sacred Gears who were unhappy with their lots in life. That's a scary thought, I commented. Azazel nodded.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. The hero faction's obsession with pushing the limits of human potential, studying balance breakers, In testing the mettle of supernatural beings, any and all consequences will be viewed as achievements. It would only be a matter of time before the disgruntled Sacred Gear vessel causes havoc here in the underworld. The seeds sowed by the hero faction were already spreading deep roots. Azazel's expression turned fearful, a rarity for him. We've been had. We still don't know what those terrorists' endgame is, but it's clear they've dealt us a heavy blow. There's no mistaking this will have a big impact on things going forward. Yeah, humans are sure terrifying in nature. Incidents could erupt soon, and even affect high-class demons. At least the Prez was a Kai Master, and those of us in her familia who possess sacred gears, Azia, Kiba, Gasper, and I, were living happy lives. However, I understood not everyone was so fortunate. That shadow-wielding assailant back in Kyoto had been one such example. His life had turned around once the hero faction had taught him to master his abilities. Plenty would use their powers for a promise of a new and better existence. It sounded like there would be a lot of trouble from here on out. I wanted to cuddle to the biblical god, who was supposedly dead. Why did you create the Sacred Gear system? What were you thinking? Were you trying to save humans? Was it to help those in need? To create heroes and peerless warriors? Because if your plan was to improve people's lives, it isn't working out. Your little system is causing violence and unrest over the world. Thanks to you, some of us, myself included, can supposedly kill deities. Would I have pursued chaos if I'd been presented with a different path? I didn't want to consider that possibility. Azazel must have recognized that the atmosphere in the room was grim, because he cleared his throat with a feigned cough. My bad. Anyway, I'm here to advise you on your match against Sarah Org. Right. This was supposed to be the key meaning. Our battle against the Bale Familia was near at hand. We needed whatever pointers he could give us. Hoping to lighten the atmosphere, I raised my hand with a question. Does Sarah Org have an advisor like you teach? Azazel was still serving as the Grimoire Familia's advisor when it came to matches and the like. We were blessed indeed to have a leader of one of the three factions sharing his wisdom with us. From what I gathered, he often assisted the Citru Familia too, and he seemed more than willing to share some advice with anyone else who didn't pose an immediate threat. You can say that, he answered. The esteemed emperor of the reigning game, apparently. Die Hause Belial, the Prez exclaimed in shock. To one day claim every title relating to the reigning game, he, the current champion, was their ultimate target. Would he become an insurmountable obstacle for me when I was finally able to compete independently? Well, Rias, Issei, since you both aspire to become high-class demons, you'd better start thinking of him as an end boss. That goes for the rest of you too. You won't be able to avoid fighting him so long as your master is intent on climbing to the top, Azazel said. Now then, have you memorized the data on Sarah Org's group? We all nodded. Yeah, that had been no problem. We'd been researching the members of the Bale Familia. Although, strictly speaking, we only knew about some of their abilities for certain. Knowledge was essential going into a battle like this. Without it, your enthusiasm would dry up in a heartbeat. Thus, I pored over the video recordings of Sarah Org's match against Zephyrdor Glaciolabolis. Azazel activated a holographic projection in the center of the room, listing every member of the Bale Familia and their known skills and attributes. It looks like they didn't show all of the cards during their last bout. Well, seeing how that Glaciolabolis brat challenged Sarah Org to a one-on-one duel halfway in, that can't really be helped. Sarah Org finished the match in no time. He paused there for a moment, crossing his arms. You know, Sarah Org and his people are a lot like you guys. They actually train for this sort of thing, unlike most demons. They clearly leveled up from last time too. Yeah, Sarah Org's familia was hardworking and dedicated, a rarity among demons. Like us, its members worked daily to increase their strength. I had little doubt that they were stronger now than they had been during their previous match. Word has it, They've even fought against the Chaos Brigade. So, they're building experience in real-life combat as well. Looks like Sir Zek's desire to keep the demon youth away from danger was in vain. Sire Orc's people are as reckless as you all, though. So, they were always going to get involved.
Azazel remarked with a forced grin. Seriously? All I wanted was to live in peace. But I already ended up facing off against a god, and then did battle with the wielder of the ultimate Longinus. If only someone had told me the trip to Kyoto would end up in an epic battle. Even if this was my fate, it was just too awful. Rossweiss, her expression stern, spoke up. The opposition's pawn doesn't appear in the recordings, correct? We all glanced up at the projection, at a figure wearing what looked like some kind of science fiction mask. In the name field, the data listed only one word. Pawn. Sire Orc's pawn. His familia also included 1 queen, 2 rooks, 2 knights, and 2 bishops. There was only 1 masked pawn, however. A reporter asked Sire Orc about his pawn at the press conference, right? Kiba asked. Had there been a question like that? I must have been too nervous to notice. I would have certainly remembered a mask if I seen it. In other words, the pawn must have been absent for the media event.
It seems Sire Orc rarely uses his pawn. We got hardly any information on him, and he's always masked, so we can't tell who he really is. This latest match is the first time we've seen any details whatsoever. You can bet he'll be seeing action this time, though. Word is, Sire Orc is trying to keep his pawn away from the other servants. Supposedly, this guy needs 6 or 7 pieces to recruit. That's why the Bale Familia has only the 1.
6 or 7? We cried back in collective shock. 7? I myself have required 8 pieces. If Sire Orc needed to use up that many to recruit this guy, he was either extremely skilled or possessed enormous potential.
Since we don't have much data on him, we'd better be extremely wary.
Azazel cautioned.
There's no telling what he's capable of. He's Sire Orc's ace in the hole, or, as you say here in Japan, his prized tiger cub.
Tiger cub? Come to think of it, Sire Orc's mother came from a family said to rule over lions. Just trying to imagine what this potential foe could do sent a shiver down my spine. Would I be forced to fight him? No, I couldn't go in with that kind of attitude. I needed to use my brain and keep a cool head. The press took over the meeting from there, explaining our tactics and potential counter strategies for each possible opponent. Irina, who had been sitting in the meeting, watched with great interest. Raven was present too, hard at work taking notes. She sure was a studious one, huh? At the end of our strategy meeting, I raised a hand into the air with a question for Azazel. Teach, if we enter the reigning game for real, what do you think our odds are of facing off against the reigning champion?
The Grimry and the Bale Familias are the most promising among the demon youths. Both are made up of powerful, highly capable members, even if you haven't participated in any official matches yet. More importantly, you have real-world combat experience from facing off against world-class foes. And on top of that, you survived those encounters with 0 casualties. That doesn't happen very often. It's only natural that people see you as one of the most up-and-coming teams. So, yes, you can aim high. I'd say it's only a matter of time before you reach the top 10.
That was high praise coming from the governor of the fallen angels. We were all clearly embarrassed over warm comments, but that was where the niceties ended.
However, you've also attracted a lot of attention. The whole underworld will be watching your next bout. You were already famous after stopping that evil god Loki and beating those terrorists, but then you managed to up the ante with your press conference. Yeah, the inhabitants of the underworld are looking forward to see what's in store for you and the future of demonkind.
The future of demonkind? That sounded larger than life.
Of course. The current top-ranking teams will be watching you all closely. I'd imagine they'll be doing the same for Sire Orc too. They've undoubtedly started researching you guys as potential future opponents. That's good. The higher end for the leaderboard has hardly changed in ages. Thinking what you and Cyborg's team might bring to the future is exciting. Azazel let out a bright laugh. Upend that leaderboard. The current top 10 needs a little fresh blood. Overturn the hierarchy, Emperor Belial included, and breathe new life into the rating game.
Could we do that? Upend the rating game? Defeating the reigning champion? Take the top place for ourselves? I certainly wanted to. Champions. Conquerors of the rating game. My dream was to become a harem king, but the undisputed ruler of the rating games wouldn't be too bad either. Most of all, I wanted to help the Prez climb to the top. That was her dream. As for me, I had plenty of ambitions. I well and truly was a demon to possess this much greed. Whatever stood in my way, I wouldn't make it happen. I turned those dreams into reality.
Once our meeting concluded, Azazel and Frostvice left to see their responsibilities as members of the Kuo Academy teaching staff. The rest of us continued with our preparations for the Academy Festival. Kiba and I were handling the heavy lifting as usual. I sneaked another glance at the Prez. She was looking over documents and notes from the meeting. She still appeared to be in a bad mood. What was I supposed to do? If I didn't help lift her spirits before the match, it could impact our performance. I had to apologize. I doubted that she would forgive me if I didn't. The problem was, my brain had yet to work out what I'd done wrong. I was trying hard to think of the best course of action when it happened. With a whoosh, a burst of light spread across the table, quickly lighting up the intricate design of a magic circle. I know this pattern. Phoenix? Kanako muttered. She was right. That was the design of the House of Phoenix. It was only a small magic circle, so maybe it was one of those used for long-distance communication? But who? It couldn't be Riser, right? What could he want? I watched with suspicion when a holographic projection emerged from the circle. The face of a young woman stared back at us. She wore her hair up and sported expensive-looking jewelry. Overall, she possessed elegant and dignified features. Mother! Ravel cried out with frantic grimace. Mother? So that was Ravel's mom? That would make her Rise's mom too, and the parent of the current head of the House of Phoenix. She was beautiful, and easily could have passed for a woman in her 20s. Seeing as she was a demon, it would have been hard to approximate her age. Dang, she looked just like her daughter. How are you, Ravel? I apologize for calling without notice. I've been so busy, so I'm sorry for contacting you at this late hour. In Japan, it still must be school time, no? That's right, but, why are you calling? Ravel questioned. Are Rias and the Red Dragon Emperor with you? Lady Phoenix inquired. The Prez? And me? Why me? Our crimson-haired leader stood before the projection. Greetings, Lady Phoenix. It's been too long. Rias, how are you? It has been a while, hasn't it? And... Lady Phoenix glanced around the room. Was she looking for me? I rushed to position myself in front of the magic circle. Hello, I'm Issei. It's a pleasure to meet you, Red Dragon Emperor Issei. I believe this is our first time speaking with each other. I'm sorry I couldn't be in person. Not at all. How can I help? I asked politely. I will have to introduce myself properly next time. Normally, it would only be appropriate for me to thank Rias in person for letting my daughter stay at the Hyoto residence, but I'm afraid with the situation being what it is, demand for Phoenix Tears has been skyrocketing, so she probably doesn't have much free time. Kiba whispered to me. That made sense. Ravel's family was the main supplier of Phoenix Tears after all. The House of Phoenix was apparently having difficulty maintaining Phoenix Tears production to keep up with the demand caused by the recent terrorist attacks, so Lady Phoenix was no doubt swamped with work. It sounded like hard stuff. I was grateful for that dedication.
Not to worry, ma'am, the Prez answered with a smile. It's the thought that counts. Ravo is safe with us. Thank you again, Rias. You helped get Ryza back on his feet after your match, and now you're looking after Ravo too.
Judging from her tone of voice, Lady Fenix spoke with true sincerity. I always thought the Fenix family would hold a grudge against us, and me in particular, for ruining the Prez's engagement with Riser, but they didn't seem all that bothered. They were unexpectedly generous at heart. Nonetheless, the Prez's expression was conflicted. She probably felt obligated to take Ravo in and look after her. Lady Fenix directed her attention to me.
Issei Hyoto, I would be most grateful to you, in particular if you would be there for my daughter.
Me? And why did she emphasize those words in particular? I mean, I'll definitely assist her in any way I can. Naturally, but I think the Prez and the others will be a better help than me.
Yes, of course. With Rias and her friends around, I'm sure Ravo will have no trouble adapting to life at a human school. But what I'm asking of you is a little different. Won't you help keep her safe from any foul pests up there in the human realm? My husband and I can rest easy with the Red Dragon Emperor protecting our daughter.
Foul pests? Was she asking me to keep pushing guys away from her daughter? Had she forgotten that I was a man like any other? I guess it was true that I wouldn't lay a hand on her. She was my treasured underclassman. I couldn't possibly harm her. I understand. I'll do my best to keep your daughter safe. At this declaration, Lady Fenix beamed. Ravo, on the other hand, turned bright red. Was something the matter? Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the Prez looked a little pissed for an instant, but maybe I was just imagining things.
I'm most grateful. Ravo?
Yes, Mother.
You know what is expected of you, I hope. You must support Rias, listen to your upperclassmen, and most of all, deepen your relationship with Issei Hyoto. Be sure not to tarnish the family name, understood?
Of course. I couldn't quite work it out, but mother and daughter seemed to be discussing something serious. Ravo's face was scarlet, yet she looked really energetic.
Finally, Issei Hyoto.
Lady Fenix addressed me again. Yes?
I've heard that your ambition is to become a high-class demon?
Yeah, that's right.
My daughter is presently my bishop. I traded Riser for her.
Oh, yeah, I heard.
Good. Then keep this in mind. My daughter is free. She's my bishop. She doesn't belong to Riser. Do you hear?
Yes, I understand. I already knew that, but I nodded anyway. Lady Fenix bobbed her head too, seeming curiously satisfied. Why?
That concludes my business. Rias, Issei Hyoto, everyone, please forgive my sudden intrusion. I must go. Ravo, be sure to conduct yourself with the dignity of a lady in the human realm.
I will, Mother.
In that case, farewell.
The holographic projection let out a bright flash, then dissipated. Lady Fenix had swept in like a storm and had disappeared just as quickly. Undoubtedly, she was fretting over her daughter and had wanted to meet us all. I hadn't followed everything she said, though. Still filled with uncertainty, I let out a sigh. Meanwhile, the Prez went for the door. Her feet looked unsteady. Prez, are you going somewhere? I called out. She stopped in her tracks, and without looking back, whispered,
Issei, will you protect me?
What was this all of a sudden? I wasn't sure, but I knew how to answer. Of course I'll protect you, Prez.
And Azia?
Huh? Obviously. I'll look after her as well.
And Akano?
Akano? You bet. But why do you ask?
I couldn't guess what she was getting at for the life of me. Issei, she called out again, voice almost imperceptibly soft. Yes? What am I to you? Who am I? The meaning of that question. You're the idiots! She shouted before I could finish. There were tears in her eyes. With that, she took off, charging out of the club room. Rias! Azia called out, chasing after her. When she reached the door, she glanced back over her shoulder. Her eyes were moist like the Prez's. Was she crying? Issei, you're horrible. Why couldn't you understand Rias' feelings? That was all she said before following after the Prez. Even Ozzy was angry at me now. All I could do was stand there in mute shock and confusion. Hold on. Wait. What do you mean? Why are you angry at me now, Azia? Bad movie, say. Kiba remarked with a sigh. What does that mean? Exactly what I said. You really have no clue, do you? I can understand why they're both upset. Indeed. It's only natural that they be angry. Akano sounded cross. What had I done? I might not be the most perceptive in these matters, but even I'm appalled, Issei. Zenobia added, staring at me coldly. You're awful, Issei. Awful. Poor Rias. Irina was fuming as well. You're the worst. What? Konoko had said that to me before, but never with such icy chill. Seriously, what was my mistake? I didn't know. Was going after the present Azia the right choice? I moved to leave, yet Akano stepped in my way. Stop, she said. With your current mindset, you'll make things worse, Issei. Seriously? Was the situation that grave? Had I screwed up so seriously? I honestly couldn't understand what was going on. Actually, I had one idea, but I didn't think it was possible. There was no way. So, what was the answer? Just thinking about it made me more confused. Hey, Gasper, am I really at fault here? I questioned. Yes, definitely. He answered apologetically, twitching in discomfort. Even he thought so. I was sinking into despair by the moment. River began awkwardly. This is because of my mother and me, isn't it? I'm sorry. So it was her doing? I suppose the press left after the conversation with Lady Phoenix. Akano placed a hand on Ravel's shoulder. Don't worry about it. Issei is the cause. He hasn't spared a passing thought of what matters most to Rias. After those words of encouragement, Akano urged Ravel to take a seat on the sofa while she prepared some tea. Yeah, it seemed I was the culprit. What was I supposed to do now? What's with everyone? Why are they all acting like that? I muttered in an empty room in the old school building. After the events in the club room, Akano had directed us all to continue our preparations for the Academy Festival. The tense atmosphere had cooled somewhat after she left to search for the present Azia. I was proceeding with my work alone. Kiba and Gasper had left to go shopping. Our plan was to use this room to perform pseudo-exorcisms of sorts, a purification ritual during the Academy Festival. Naturally, given that we were demons, the real deal was too dangerous. Instead, we were going with an original demon-style one, even if that did sound like a contradiction. My task was to decorate the space in Japanese style. I had already laid out tatami mats and arranged everything to resemble the interior of a Shinto shrine. Akano would be in charge of this event on the day of the festival, while Konoko would use her sage magic to improve the ki flow of any visitors to boost their luck. Phew, Now that I was alone, I couldn't help but reflect on what had happened. Where had I gone wrong? I hadn't spared a passing thought on what was most important to the Prez. That was what Akano told me. Lately, it seemed that everyone, the Prez, her mother, and all the people around us, all wanted something of me. And it had to do with my attitude towards the Prez. Thoughts from before the meeting came to mind. There were two things in particular. The first was that I'd failed to comprehend my master's feelings and had hurt her in the process. As for the second, the one that seemed like pure fantasy on my part, and as much as I would have loved for it to be true, I couldn't bring myself to tread too far down that path. But if it was true, it would certainly explain everything that had occurred since the Prez moved into my house. I'd always had my doubts. There were 3 guys in the Gremlin Familia, me, Kiba, and Gasper. It was well known that the Prez held deep affection for her servants, but wasn't it a little strange how she treated us so differently? I mean, she'd kissed me. It hadn't even been on the forehead or on the cheek. There was no mistaking mouth-to-mouth contact for anything else. She even used her tongue, and not just once or twice either. Unsurprisingly, I'd been overjoyed each time. Who wouldn't have been delighted to kiss the woman they loved? I was in heaven. True paradise. The Prez had gone so far as to offer a suggestive invitation. I'd been on the verge of taking her up on that offer. Initially, I attributed all her doting to the fact that I was younger than her and new to the Familia. I'd assumed all the affection was a way to forge a bond, a reward for loyalty. But in that case, why didn't she do anything similar with Kiba or Gasper? Both had made it clear that she didn't engage in anything like that with them. This special treatment seemed to be reserved for me alone. She did adore Kiba and Gasper, and clearly cherished them both. However, there was an undeniable difference in the way that manifested. On top of that, she had always been very particular when it came to romance. Part of it seemed to be due to naivety, while the other portion was her old-fashioned, maidenly way of thinking. That was why she'd broken off her engagement with Riser. The Prez had become more physical with me after ending her betrothal. And it was that time that she decided to move into my house. Would someone so pure and innocent act so seductive, so stimulating, so intimate just because she adored her servant? No, I didn't think so. From an objective point of view, she clearly valued her chastity. Taking all that into account, I couldn't help but wonder, does the Prez like me? That was the only conceivable explanation. If so, it would certainly explain her recent attitude towards me. No, it can't be. She's my master. I'm her servant. A member of her familia, Rias Grimry's pawn. But if it was true, if she did like me, what then? I liked her too, not just as a master, as a girl. During these past 6 months, I'd seen her from so many different angles. Her brilliance, nobility, glamour, gentleness, anger, voluminous breasts, adorable cuteness, silky smooth skin, selfish streak, and how she acted like an older lady at times and a girl our age at others. Through it all, I'd come to see her as a regular teenager. She was my ideal woman. I wanted to date her. I wanted to go beyond the standard master-servant relationship. If possible, I wanted to stand by your side going forward. Was it true? Did she really like me in that way? If so, I might have sent to the heavens in elation. Heck, I wanted to confess these feelings that grew stronger inside me every day. I adored her. I was in love with her. I would always love her. And I wanted to tell her that. If I was wrong, though, it would jeopardize everything we built. I couldn't stand that. And as indecision whirled in my head, she came to me. Cold sweat began to run down my face. My hands were trembling. I could feel the excitement rising. No, this had to be a wild fantasy, a mad delusion. I was certain of it. If I hoped for anything more, everything I had now would crumble away. I'd be forced to face it for myself, the insurmountable barrier separating master from servant. Right. That's just the way of things. Why would a noble lady from a high-class demon family settle for me and reincarnate a human from a no-name household? But what about her attitude? Damn it. A maiden's heart sure is complicated, I muttered. At that moment, the door swung open with an audible squeak. Looking over my shoulder, I spotted Akano in a Shroud Maiden outfit. Perhaps it seems that way from a man's perspective. She was flashing me her usual smile. And Konako came in behind her. Akano, and Konako too. Did you hear me? Perfectly. Konako answered in the affirmative with a thumbs up. They caught it all. I collapsed on the tatami mat with my shoulders slumped. I guess I really hadn't considered the present's feelings enough. Akano sat down beside me, and Konako did the same. Indeed, that's true. You haven't contemplated mine, Azia, Zenovia's, or Konako's either. I pondered Akano's words for a long moment. Seriously? Was I really blind to them all? I had always been busy fantasizing about women, dreaming of their sublime bodies, yet I'd never seen all the girls in my life for who they really were. Maybe so. It never struck me to try to understand a maiden's heart. I'd failed all the girls in the Gremlin Familia. Maybe we didn't try to understand you well enough either, Issei. That was Azia's voice. When I glanced up, I found her looking down. She approached and sat across from me. Me? Yes, Akano answered. We realized something. It's our job to look after Rias, but perhaps we need to help heal you too. Heal me? Having finished speaking, Akano started removing my clothes. Hold on a second there, Akano. What was she planning to do with my naked chest? I think I need to suck more dragon power out of you right here. Here? At that moment, she began to remove her Shrine Maiden outfit. Her glorious breasts popped out before my very eyes. The next thing I knew, she was embracing me from behind. I could feel the soft, tender warmth of her breasts directly on my back. In seemingly no time at all, my blood had reached a boil. It's time for your sage magic treatment. Hold me. Konako embraced me from the front. She was in full cat mode, her feline ears popping up as she began to unleash her sage magic. I could feel the warmth of her ki flowing out from her petite breasts. And then there were the fully ripe ones pressing against my back as well. I gasped. Akano started sucking on the back of my neck. She used her tongue so sensually. Sucking and licking, wonderfully wet and ticklish. Could she really drain my dragon powers this way? I was happy for her to try. I had a Nekomata at the gates and a super seductive great lady at my rear. What an extraordinary situation. It was a seductive love sandwich. Ozzy began to remove her clothes, then took my hand and placed it on her chest. My brain almost exploded with excitement as the soft, squishy feeling of her wonderful feminine flesh coursed through my body. At the same moment, a pale green aura began to emanate from her body, enveloping my own. This was her healing ability at work. What an incredible predicament. Akano was sucking out the excess of dragon energy. Konako was mending my body with her sage magic, and Ozzy was filling me with warmth of her healing aura. I was having a time of my life surrounded by these three beauties, but I could barely take it anymore. I was at my limit. It was then that Akano, her voice tinged with sadness, whispered, "Sometimes when you look at us, Issei, there's so much fear in your eyes. I didn't understand why at first, but I finally figured it out." Fear in my eyes. It was showing through, and I hadn't even realized. Konako lifted her face to stare up at me, tears in her eyes. Maybe Only those of us who know what happened to you have noticed. What happened to me? Yeah, I knew what she was referring to. Hakuno Konoko must have caught on. Only those who were members of the Presence Familia when I joined knew the details. Is Rainier still looking at your heart, Issei? Ozzy asked wearily. A beautiful girl with black wings appeared in my mind's eye. Could you die for me? My first girlfriend, Yuma. No, the fallen angel Rainier. An uneasy sweat started beating on my forehead. The events of that evening flashed before my eyes once more. Don't talk to me like that, you filthy, low-level demon. Sometimes I found myself holding back when I should have called out to the beautiful girls in our familia. Oh, but that little date you took me on was so ordinary. You can't imagine how bored I was. Every time I went shopping with the Prez or the others, I wondered whether they found being with me was tedious. A spoiled brat like you has no right to utter my true name. I mean, I wanted to call the Prez by name. Issei, help me. The demon is going to kill me. I love you, Issei. Please, help me defeat her. My first girlfriend had begged me to save her life, and then the woman I loved most killed her. At the time, it felt right that Rainier had died. She had done such horrible things to Azia, even murdering her. So I thought it was just when the Prez finished that wicked fallen angel off. Now, however, I wasn't so sure. There were tears running down my cheeks. I wiped them away with my hand and whispered, "She was my first girlfriend. It was the happiest moment of my life when she confessed to me. I did my best to take her on a good date. I planned everything out so carefully. I was even thinking about our future, about Christmas, about Valentine's Day. I was an idiot, off in a fantasy world of my own making. After so long, I was finally voicing what kept bottled up all this time. Trying to lighten the story was pointless. I couldn't bring myself to joke or smile when it came to this deep-rooted pain. But she was my enemy. She killed me. And after I became a demon, she looked down at me with such contempt. It had all been an act. Maybe I could have accepted that much, but then she went and killed Azia and forced me to fight her. I lost it. That was the first time I ever hit a girl, and she was my first girlfriend. Then she begged me for her life, but the Prez killed her anyway. Rainier's death, those black feathers scattering throughout the church, that scene remained bitterly engraved in my mind, and every time I returned to that memory, the world seemed to stop. Azia, Akano, Konoko, I'm scared. The truth is, I'm afraid of getting close to girls, because what if the same thing happens again? Everyone in our family is so kind, but if I try to take what we have to the next level, I could end up getting rejected, humiliated. I know none of you are like that. I do. You're all good people. Yet I can't move past it. The second I think about getting close, the brakes kick in, dragging me to a halt. I covered my face with my hands. I didn't want them to see me like this. They could have realized how weak and pitiful I was. Yet, despite that, I couldn't stop myself from speaking the truth. I don't want to go through the same thing again. I was truly pathetic, cowering like this, in front of the very girls whom I had declared again and again my dream of becoming a harem king. I had confessed the ironic reality. I didn't have the courage to take even a single relationship to the next stage. With things as they were, I wouldn't blame them if they felt disgusted by what they saw in me now. Yet, Azia, tighten her grip on my hand. She flashed me a gentle smile. I love you, Issei. I said in mute amazement while Azia continued. I want to stay with you forever. I would never mock you. I respect you. You're the most reliable, admirable man I've ever known. I want to live by your side forever. That's what I want from the bottom of my heart. Her smile, her words resonated within me. Rias would never hate you, Issei. I know her like that. I know you like her. You fight harder for her than anyone else. We all know that. And she must know it too. Azia. She'd been watching over me this whole time. I thought I had been protecting her, but maybe she was the one keeping a close watch on me. Her presence made me feel safe, secure. Be brave, Issei. You'll be fine. You've worked so hard. I'm sure you'll be able to break through this wall holding you back. Faced with encouragement, all I could do was tear up. Damn it. This was sweat of the heart formed in response to the most comforting assault I've ever known. Akuno held me close from behind. I love you too, Issei. She whispered as she placed her face on my shoulder. Konoko took a hold of my face with both hands and beamed. Me too. I love you. It's okay to put the fallen angel behind you. That's right. If it's a fallen angel you want, I can satisfy that thirst, Issei. So be strong. If you don't move forward with Rias, Akuno trailed off. Me too, Azia added. Then she gasped a little, as though realizing something else. We all want you to let us in more, Issei. Everyone was being so kind. I could feel something inside me thawing. Azia, Akuno, Konoko, their words lit a fire in me, gradually melting away the thing that had held me back. What was this feeling? This warmth in my heart? These three girls had given me something that filled a hole inside. Azia, Akuno, Konoko, Finally, I felt like I might be able to shake off Renee's curse. The bonds that had been holding me back were loosening. Rias, Akuno, Konoko, Zenobia, Irina, Rosweiss, Kiba, Gasper, and I all love you, Issei. Will you trust what we're saying? Azia. Thank you, Azia. You really were watching out for me. I was truly blessed to have a kind girl like you stand by me forever. Thanks to everyone, I finally had the strength to shake off Renee. Why hadn't I realized this sooner? I wiped away the tears and pulled myself together. Thank you. With you all here to help me, I know I can do it. Azia, I want to renew my promise with you. I'll stick by you to the end. Let's spend the next 10,000 years in each other's company, Azia. I love you. Yes, forever. I love you, Issei. She exclaimed with tears of joy. Oh dear, I'll always be with you as well, Issei. Akuno said, pressing her voluptuous breast firmly against my back and nuzzling against my shoulder. I'll stand by you too, Issei. Always. Konoko added, giving my stomach a light jab. Was she a little angry? Zenobia, hold on. What is it, Irina? Did you find Issei? Irina and Zenobia suddenly appeared in the doorway. Had they been searching for me? When Zenobia laid eyes on the situation in the room, she slammed her fists into the palm of her hand, as though coming to a realization. So you're fighting over Issei? I guess I can't afford to let my guard down around you guys, huh? And is this one of those days where you try to push him down and strip him naked? In that case, leave it to me. Without hesitation, Zenobia boldly tore off her clothes and strode towards us. Irina, get over here too. If you don't, you'll lose your childhood friend. Or rather, I'll take him for my own. What? I should join in too, right? as Lord Michael's ace, making a baby with the heavenly dragon will get me promoted to the next level. So I have to fight for Issei. Irina, egged on by Zenobia, started moving my way, her wings flashing between white and black. You guys, you gotta stop coming on to me with no warning. All at once, I was surrounded by 5 beauties, each of them taking turns arguing with one another. What was I to do? Issei is gonna be with me, Ozzy declared. Come on, Zenobia replied. Just let me borrow him for a bit. Ozzy, Zenobia, remember to be fair, Irina chided. Oh dear, there's nothing more thrilling than getting a head start on the others, wouldn't you say, Konako? Akano remarked. Our Nekomata nodded. They say the early bird gets the worm, Akano. All I could do was watch with a half smile as the girls battled it out. Yeah, there was still a lot about women that I didn't understand. Nonetheless, they saved me. The girls in this familia had pulled me up to the surface. Rainier's memory had been lurking in my heart for so long now, little by little, that burner was beginning to ease. Even if I couldn't erase it completely, there was no mistaking it was lighter. Thank you, Asuya, Akano, and Konako. You too, Zenobia and Irina. The courage I lacked for so long had sparked to life. No matter what happened, I would push on. I would follow my feelings. There was still a chance that this wasn't the answer the press wanted for me, but I made up my mind. I'd already been considering it for a while. Once I defeated Cyber-Org, I would confess these feelings in my heart. I swore to myself as the decisive battle loomed.